Hello, everyone, and welcome in on celebrating 50 years of Mitchell High School football. As this week we are into week 5 as Mitchell travels to Hendersonville. I'm Brody Miller, and here in just a moment you're going to hear from Chris Pittman, Danny Willis, Ricky Duncan, and myself. This week had a few technical difficulties on our recording, lost a minute or two off of the beginning and end of our show, but all you're going to miss there at the first is some thoughts on last week's game at Robbinsville, where Mitchell lost by a score of 35-6. Hayden Webb, the Western Sizzling WTOE player of the game, in a game where Mitchell just had a lot of things that didn't quite go right overall, and looking to get that turned around this week as we travel to Hendersonville. Also, here in just a minute, you're going to hear from 2002 to 2007, where all the guys talk about Mitchell under Charlie Snyder, who went 21-27, and then from 2008 to 2013, Coach Russell Barnett, who went 19-23. Both of those men having some very good teams at Mitchell High School, some good playoff runs. You'll hear about the team that went to Albemarle, and some of Coach Snyder's some good players that he had, and same for Coach Barnett. So stick around there, and you're going to hear that coming right up.
Charlie and Russell. And, you kind of look at this, I think, is the turning point for Mitchell football. Really started to be a household name, and where we were ranked highly. And, you hear the word Mitchell, and other teams kind of sit up and listen a little bit more. But Coach Snyder, very personable, got along great with the players, loved the players. Coach Barnett was an outstanding receiver at Mitchell High School, and he went on, and Coach Barnett led us to Albemarle. I believe that was the finals of the West, wasn't it? First time we'd ever been that far in the playoffs. So two great coaches who really done a lot, to solidify, the heritage of Mitchell football, Chris.
Well, I think about this. Coach Charlie Snyder took over on the heels of Coach Tom Marin. In Charlie's first year, we won 9 football games, and so that equals the biggest win total in a regular season. So Charlie's first team won 9 games. Unfortunately, in the first round of the playoffs, they had to go to Shelby and play a really good Shelby Golden Lions team, and we didn't come out on the top end of that score. But I think Coach Snyder took us to the playoffs several years, had a really good career, had some guys that were good performers. One of the things, Jason Hall, who's currently the principal at Mitchell Middle School, I think it might have been when he was a junior. That was a very talented team, and about a third of the way through the season, they got hit with the injury bugs. One of whom was Jason Hall, and he tore his ACL and was done for the year. Had it not been for that injury, I think that team could have probably went deep into the playoffs. But a good 6-year run for Coach Snyder. His last year, he saw things on the upswing, and he handed it off to Coach Russell Barnett. Coach Barnett had a really fine team his first year. Probably the most fun offense that Mitchell had up to that point to watch. They had a high-powered offense. They had a lot of weapons. Joe Holman was a quarterback. We had Jordan Jones and the oldest Bomar boy, Joe Bomar, as receivers, and so they had a lot of weapons and just a really good team. Finished the year 6-6. They got into a shootout at Owen that year. As a fun game to be a part of. So Coach Barnett's first year was really good. Then I think probably in his fourth year, third or fourth year, we made that run into the playoffs again. Another Coach Barnett had really done a good job preparing that team, and before the first game, or quite possibly before their first scrimmage, something like that, some of the guys were out being boys, and they were going down Mine Creek Road, and several of them they were in a truck wreck. Nobody got hurt or nobody got killed, but 2 or 3 of the guys got hurt pretty bad, and it took them several weeks to recover from that. But along the way, they started getting healthier, and they discovered this young guy named Juggy Hughes as their quarterback, and he became a phenom. And he really bloomed probably the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season into the playoffs. And they that playoff run, we went to Cherryville, and he really came into his own there. He rushed for well over 100, quite possibly 200 yards. Then the second week we went to West Wilkes and won there. And then in week 3 we had a rematch with Avery. We'd played Avery in the snow at Avery the last week of the season and lost a nail biter. Went back up there and beat Avery, and then played Albemarle in the Western Regional Championship game. First time Mitchell had ever done that. We were kind of nonchalant as we went into that game. Came up on the short end of the stick, lost to the eventual state champions Albemarle, and I think the final was like 21-7 or something like that. And then the next year, that core group of juniors became seniors, and that team I think won what I think they finished the year 12-2 and lost in the regional semifinals at home against Swain County. Got a couple of kids hurt. Josh McClellan and Cody Gardner got hurt, and had we not had some injuries in that game, I think we quite possibly could have won and advanced on. So Coach Snyder and Coach Barnett did a great job, and again they kind of were the forerunners of where we're at today.
Certainly, and that was like you said a minute ago, Rick. You really the early 2000s. We had some good teams back in the 80s and 90s, but that really started a more consistent patch of winning seasons like we know it to be now.
It did in the Avery game, the second Avery game Chris was alluded to. We went up there the first game. You were younger. You was probably with us because your dad Jamie was helping me do the radio then, and they beat us up there. And it wasn't close the second game, if I remember right, in the snow that Chris alluded to. I mean, we, from the get-go, Brody, from the opening snap of that second game in the third round of the playoffs, we just dominated Avery. And we wound up winning that game with what, Chris? At least double digits or more. It was a blowout. And that just kind of propelled us on down. Coach Snyder laid the groundwork, and then Coach Barnett just took off running. But like Chris said, a lot of good athletes. I mean, this is a stretch of Mitchell football where you really, not putting down the earlier years, because we've always had great individual players, but you had numerous. And I kind of believe this was a stretch where we kind of come together, Chris, as a county. I mean, you started getting, he mentioned Joe Holman, which was from the other end of the county. You began to get a lot more, it wasn't Bowman Harris anymore. You'd been there long enough to Mitchell. The kids had got used to going. It was Mitchell, which is what it was supposed to be.
Right.
And a lot of the bad blood between Bowman and Harris was gone. And you really started seeing kids from the other end and the lower end, Tipton Hill and Bakersfield, and getting kids from down in that end of the county, which really solidified your team and made it much, much stronger. A lot of good athletes down in there, too.
Certainly. Well, guys, any other comments, on those couple years there? I will mention I failed to at the beginning, as I have been, but we'll throw this out, talk about Hendersonville, and then answer our trivia question for the week. And some clues have been thrown around for you. Danny, you want to read that off, and then you can give the answer in just a minute.
Well, our trivia question was, which quarterback in 1 year rushed for 1,000 yards and passed for 1,000 yards?
And the first to ever do that.
First to ever do that. So that's our trivia question, and we'll hit it at the end.
Can I give them a clue? It kind of goes along with the 2 seasons or the 12 years that we just alluded to under Coach Barnett, and that may be a clue.
Could be there. Guys, at Hendersonville this week, Western Highlands Conference play starting, and against a good squad at Hendersonville. They're coming in at 3-1. Their first loss was this past week by 1 point to Irwin, but they've had big wins over East, West, and North Henderson already. And Mitchell coming in at 2-2, but going to be interesting back to what conference play was in the last 8 to 10 years, with Hendersonville mixed in there at the top of the pack.
Well, the one thing we watched them, we just saw the scores the first couple of weeks, and then they had to come back against Irwin to win. Now, the one thing we're going to see is we're going to see speed, and they're going to sling the ball around. So we're going to have our hands full on pass coverage.
Danny, let's see. Did they lost? Who did they lose to? Was their loss?
Irwin.
This past
1 point.
Last week.
Okay. Well, here's what we know from an atmosphere position perspective. when we go to Hendersonville, it's downtown Hendersonville, surrounded by roads on all four sides. On one side, there's the fire department. On the other side, there's the police department. On the other side, there's the EMS base. So it's a totally different environment. Now, on the flip side of that is a man who used to be the head coach there, B.J. Lawler, said that his guys would rather go anywhere in North Carolina as opposed to coming to Mitchell because we're out in the country and they didn't like the darkness. So when we go there, we're in cultural shock, and when they come here, they're in cultural shock. But Hendersonville's football has kind of been up and down a little bit here. It does look like this year that they are the Henderson County champions because they beat East, West, and North. Now, coming into the season, I think West Henderson was probably a little more, highly regarded and stuff. But oftentimes, that's based on what you've done the year before and how you are historically. But we can't take anything for granted. Being the old stat man that I am, I pull this out. Their quarterback is a junior, and he has completed 40 of 62 passes for 731 yards and 10 interceptions. And so there's a stark difference in their passing game and ours. And I can't look at ours right offhand here because I'm too spread out here. Their leading rusher, I believe, has carried the ball 53 times for 439 yards. However, I do think when I added it up, I think as a team we've got more yards rushing than they do. But I think their quarterback has probably completed more passes than we've attempted. But the Mountaineer defense has played pretty well. I mean, Friday night when you give up 35 points, it would be easy to say.
And there you heard our thoughts and comments on this coming week at Hendersonville, as well as some history from 2002 to 2013 under Coach Charlie Snyder and Russell Barnett. This will be the 27th meeting between Mitchell and Hendersonville, last played in 2016. And the overall record between these two teams, thanks to Mark Huskins and our Mitchell High stat crew, 7-19. Hendersonville has the edge in that. Hendersonville coming in at 3-1, as you have heard. Their only loss this past week to Irwin by 1 point. Mitchell coming in at 2-2 as Western Highlands Conference play begins this week. We'll have live coverage right here on WTOE. The answer to our trivia question, that was also cut off. The answer there, Joe Holman, first Mitchell High quarterback to rush and pass for 1,000 yards in the same season. Several have done it since then, but he was the first, and you heard Ricky talk about that a moment ago. Again, we apologize for the inconvenience this week, some of the show getting cut off, but fortunately you were able to hear most of what we had recorded. Remember, 3 ways you can find our show. You can find it online at Mitchell Mountaineer Football on Facebook. You can find it in the 7 o'clock hour on Friday mornings, the Brew Soccer Morning Show, or in our pregame show starting around 7 p.m. on Friday night. As this week, Mitchell is at Hendersonville. Thank you for joining us this week, celebrating 50 years of Mountaineer football.